Right now, the Commission on Revenue Allocation is set to launch reports tracking the progress in counties' own source revenue mobilization efforts over the first 6 years of devolution. Our very own Brenda Kerubo has been following up on this. Brenda, very good morning to you. How exactly are counties performing?
Good morning, of course, Jesse. Quite a chilly morning, but I must say that it's not at all chilly here where I am at the Stanley Hotel here in the capital, Nairobi, because the Commission on Revenue Allocation is set to release at least 2 reports that targets counties. Now, the first one, of course, like you mentioned earlier, will focus on revenue mobilization in the last about 7 years since devolution began, and the second one, of course, will focus on a set of advice on how counties, all 47 of them, can better collect revenues. Now, joining us is our commissioner, of course, at the Commission on Revenue Allocation, and she is Dr. Irene Koech. Thank you so much and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Irene, just briefly talk to us about the reports. What exactly do they entail, and what are some of the key findings from these reports?
Thank you very much, Brenda. Today, as you have rightly said, we are launching 2 reports. One on the performance of the counties in the first 6 years of devolution. What we did was that we carried out a study on how counties have performed as far as OSR is concerned. Then the second one is that we've been working on OSR Training Guidelines, and this is because we realized that we needed a uniform guideline to enhance on-source revenue. And the reason why we did these 2 reports is because one of our mandates in the Commission is to recommend to counties ways in which they can enhance their on-source revenue. Now, you've asked me to talk about the highlights. So going to the report and the study, we found very critical and very interesting findings. And very briefly, if I may just highlight a few of the findings, is that when we looked at the stock, one of the findings is that counties are unique. And we categorized counties into 3. We have what we call urban or peri-urban. We have what we are calling rural agro-based counties. And then we have those that we can at least refer to them as the less economically endowed counties. So that's what we found out, that really activities are different. Now, the second highlight is in terms of OSR growth. When we looked at the composite OSR growth, we realized that most counties reported positive growth, except a few that reported a negative growth. And these few, if I may mention them kindly, because this is a study we did, was Homa Bay, Busia, Wajir, and Mandera. That was the second key highlight that we found. The other highlight from the report has to do with the revenue capacity gap. Now, what we found out is that it's only one county that actually collects revenue as per the estimated potential. There was a study done by the National Treasury in 2018, and it showed the potential of counties. So it's only one county that hit the ceiling. The rest are actually collecting below their potential, and that information is there. Now, given this particular information, we also realized that cumulatively, if counties were really to collect their on-source revenue seriously, we would get about 172 billion. Now, another key highlight from this particular report has to do with revenue mobilization efforts. Now, what we realized is that there is a clear relationship between OSR collection and the size of the economy and diversity. I said earlier on that counties are diverse, so you cannot compare all counties, they are different. Now, another key highlight from this report has to do with the revenue streams in the counties. The key finding here is that, counties have got different revenue streams, and in Article 209, we know what counties are given to collect. Counties are allowed to collect property taxes, entertainment, and then they have got fees and charges. Now, what we found out in this report is that less than 10% of the revenue streams contribute more than 80% of on-source revenue. So what this means is that counties should just focus on those streams that give them enough OSR. So another very important key finding from this report has to do with how counties finance their budgets. This is very important. You know, currently as it is, counties are depending so much on the exchequer. And so in this report, the key finding is that if counties could at least collect money to finance their budget, then that would be the way to go. There was a study done by OECD in 2016, and it shows that subnational governments in less developed countries should at least fund 7.8% of their budgets. Then the same study, again by OECD, showed that subnational governments in middle-income countries should fund about 20.9% of their budgets. Now, from this study, what we found that is that our counties are not faring badly, in that in Kenya, we are doing 7.7%. So what these findings show that if counties would focus on some specific own source of revenues, then at least they would be in a position to fund their budgets. That was the key finding for this particular report. And when we talk about funding budgets, from that particular report, we find that actually Nairobi is the one that has a capability of funding its own budget. Currently, it is at about 41, it's over 40%. Of course, there are others that are really low. You know, there are those who are less than 20%, others are within 20%, but Nairobi can fund at least its own budget, if at least you focus on some targeted specific areas in the streams of OSR. So those are the key findings, Brenda. Thank you.
Even delving a little bit deeper, I know you spoke about the counties that did not perform very well in terms of collecting revenue, but what are some of the stellar performances? From which counties did you see, that performed really well? And like you're saying, you're attributing it to a well-diversified sort of economy.
Yes. Thank you, Brenda. From our report, one county that I can say is performing very well or growing very fast as far as OSR is concerned is Nyandarua. Actually, when you see the report, you'll actually see that Nyandarua is actually up there. So we have Nyandarua. Nairobi is, as much as it is collecting enough OSR, but I said earlier, don't remember, that one of our key findings is that most of the counties are collecting below their potential. So Nairobi is supposed to be collecting to a tune of almost 77 billion, but I think currently it's doing about 10 billion. So it's actually not doing very well. But we have unique ones like Nyandarua, and then we have others that tripled their growth within the first 6 years, like Embu and Garissa. They are doing like about 200% as far as OSR is concerned. Yeah. So those are the counties that I can say they actually done very well. There's a stellar performance. Yeah.
Right. And Garissa, what exactly are they doing right?
Well, according to our study, what came out is that they tripled their revenue. So they may not be collecting much as is expected, but the report is showing that in the first 6 years of the devolution, looking at where they came from, their revenues tripled. So I just want to believe that, there are things that counties need to do so that their OSR could increase. And, we need to get away from manual systems of collecting revenue. You just have to build capacity in the counties. You just have to, in terms of automation, that's getting away from the manual system of collecting revenue. But then looking at the revenue administration as well in the counties, then that way counties would be able to, for example, put up proper systems that would ensure that revenues are actually collected. So they may not be in that category, but then in the report, when you look at the reports, there are also those counties that are collecting less than 200 million, and Garissa could be amongst them. But now we are looking at, the base, where they were when the evolution began, and for the 6 years where they have reached. But in terms of quantity or amounts, of course, there are those that collect more than 1 billion, and Nairobi is in that category. And this is because it's basically a city, and their tax base is wider. They just have to do more. Yeah.
Right. And also, does this apply also to the ones that performed poorly, the ones that collected below?
The ones that performed poorly, the ones I mentioned, I said looking at the composite growth of OSR, they are in the negative. And this is because now when devolution, they are collecting less than what they were collecting before devolution. That's why we are saying they are at the negative. Yes. So probably something is not being done right, and that's why we have produced this report. We have some recommendations in the report, which we believe that if they were taken seriously, then these counties would actually collect enough. And Brenda, you know that the reason why we are doing this is that we don't want counties to depend so much on the exchequer. You know, currently they are depending on the equitable share, they are depending on conditional grants, but we would want them at least to raise their own source revenue so that at least they can, at least even when the exchequer funding delays, it doesn't go to the counties on time, they are able to carry out their activities as is expected. Yes.
And Dr. Irene, talking about the recommendations, this is also another report that you're going to release today. It talks about how counties can efficiently collect revenues. Talk to us a little bit, the key pointers, at least 4 of them that you've realized can be used by counties in order to correctly or efficiently collect revenues.
Thank you, Brenda. So the things that counties can do is that, if I said earlier on that from our report, we realized that there are revenue streams that if counties focused on them, then they would really collect a lot. One of them is, I said earlier on that Article 209 allows counties to collect revenues from property rates. Now let me just focus on property rates. Look at Nairobi alone. You know, if Nairobi was to just delve into the property rates, can you imagine how much we would collect? I said earlier on that they can collect up to 70B, more than 70B, but they are not up to that potential. Now, one thing is that the valuation roles need to be looked at. How are counties doing in terms of the valuation roles? From our report, we realize that most of the counties are still using outdated valuation roles. So if those ones were updated, then I believe the OSR of the counties would increase. Another thing that counties would do is to look at the way they are collecting revenue. Most counties are still using the manual systems of collecting revenue, you know, whereby you go to a county and you find that, you know, people are still using the receipts. You know, those receipts for a long time, but you go collect money and someone comes and writes a receipt. So how sure are we that those ones don't bring about leakages? So if we could automate the revenue management systems, I believe that would close those loopholes and the revenues would increase. Another thing is capacity building. We've really realized that most counties really, you know, since the onset of devolution, you know, counties are still doing the same thing that they used to do before devolution, and things have changed. You know, they have been given the specific revenue streams that they can collect. So if, for example, we were to train them, capacity build them, then I believe they would get the right skills and they would do things better. And that's actually one of the recommendations of this report, that we as the Commission, together with other stakeholders, we are ready to capacity build counties and help them enhance their own source revenue. Then, you know, there are so many things. You know, there are things to do with enforcement mechanisms. You know, how are we in terms of enforcing OSR collection? Are counties really serious about all this? And there are many. There are not just 4. If we could put in place all these recommendations, then I believe we would get to a better place. Yes.
All right. So, Dr. Irene, of course, the event is just about to start in the next few minutes.
Yes.
So viewers can look out for what are the 3 key things that viewers can look out for even as we finish?
What viewers can look out for in this report is that they need to look at, I know viewers come from counties, so they need to look at how their counties are performing, and they can hold into account their county. If they are up there, they can do better. We are actually, even those who are not here, they can actually go to Facebook. We are in social media, and they can actually get to follow what we are doing today. I know this will be online. They can get the report and they can read. And generally, we welcome them to be with us today wherever they are, and let them know that as a commission, we are there for the counties and we want devolution to work.
All right.
Thank you
so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Irene
Thank
Koech.
you.
Of course, Jesse, we have been listening to Dr. Irene Koech. She is a commissioner here at the Commission on Revenue Allocation, where they're set to announce at least 2 reports that target revenue collection in counties, and at the same time advices that can be used by counties, all 47 of them, to better collect revenues. Now, Jesse, my quick question is, I wonder how your county performed in this report.
I'll definitely be looking forward for the launch of that particular report. Here I am wishing my county was Nyandarua. But anyway, many thanks, Brenda Kerubo.